Okay. So we have I, you, he, she, it, we, you, and they. Okay. Reflexive pronouns are, for I, we have myself. For you, we have yourself. Him, himself. Sorry, here. She, herself. It, itself. We, ourselves. You, yourselves. And they, themselves. Okay, be careful with this too, with yourself, because in this case they are different. When we're talking in singular, we use yourself, but when we're talking in plural, we use yourselves. Okay? Now, okay. When do we use the reflexive pronouns? Normally, we use them when we have, when the subject, that is it. When the subject and object of the sentence is the same. Okay? For example, I cut myself. Okay, or she doesn't believe in herself. So as you can see here, the subject I is referring to the same person that was cut, which is actually myself. Okay. ¿Qué está pasando ahí?
Where?
No sé quién es.
Here? It's me.
Ah, okay. Okay. Perdón, entre un pitidito.
I can find.
Yes. It's okay.
Between you. There is a dog over there.
Ah, okay.
No?
That's why.
Also?
A dog?
No, but no, here at my house.
Ah, okay.
There are a lot of mice.
Get it.
I can find the microphone to the dog.
Don't worry. I think now it's okay. Now I can continue. Okay, so basically, as you can see here, in both sentences, the subject and the object of the sentences is exactly the same. Okay, we're referring to the same person. I, myself, and she, and herself. Okay? Now, that's the first case when we're going to use the reflexive pronouns. We can also use it to make emphasis. Okay, for example, she did the homework. As you can see here, the object, the homework, is not the same as the subject in the sentence. But I want to express emphasis to make emphasis on the point that she did the homework by herself. Okay? She didn't need help. Okay?
Okay.
Or like, they learned English.
No sé, que no encuentro el micrófono para ponerlo. No, solamente veo tu... aquí donde...
Aquí en la pantalla está el microfonito debajo, al lado de la cámara. Ese no, creo que... Yo te puedo callar, pero no estoy seguro si después te puedo volver a... Ay, ya se desconectó.
Sí, se desconectó.
Sí, ¿verdad? Creo que a lo mejor le colgó por tratar de apagar el micrófono.
se me hace que sí.
Ok, Tania, Janine me pidió que checáramos este tema de los reflexive pronouns. ¿Tú tienes alguna duda sobre algún otro tema?
No. Vamos muy bien. Y sobre este tema que pidió Jane se me hizo bien, pero ya también creo que sí lo comprendo.
Ah, perfecto, qué bueno. Igual, no recuerdo.
Pero vamos muy bien.
Qué bueno. No recuerdo si te conectaste en la clase pasada. Les comentaba que esta es la última semana de clases. El día jueves va a ser la última clase, obviamente. ¿Sí? Ah, perfecto.
Sí.
Entonces, me gustaría, igual ahorita les comento a todos, ¿no? Pero me gustaría si pueden presentar el examen final entre hoy y mañana para el día jueves. Igual y podemos hacer una revisión o algo aprovechar.
Ok,
¿Sale?
sí, perfecto.
Si tienen oportunidad, sería perfecto. Y si no, pues ya.
Muy bien.
Seguimos.
Ok, muy bien.
Ok, pues voy a...
Yo creo ya no se volvió a conectar, ¿verdad?
Pues no, vamos a continuar. Ah, ahí está.
Sí.
¿Listo, Jenny?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay,
perfect. So I was saying that we can also use the reflexive pronouns to express emphasis, to say that someone did something by themselves without any help. Okay?
Okay.
That's the second use we can have for reflexive pronouns. This emphasis can also be used after the subject, but it needs to be between commas. For example, she, comma, herself, comma, did the homework. Okay, so this is also correct.
Okay.
She herself did the homework. Okay.
Okay. So it's the same thing to say she did the homework herself.
That's right. Yes.
The same thing.
Yes. Normally, it is also used after the preposition by. And normally we use it to express that the person does the action alone. Okay, for example, I go on vacation by myself. Ok, Janine, creo que yo puedo ponerle mute a su micrófono desde acá.
Sí, es que sabes que hoy apareció la pantalla diferente. Ya
Okay.
que varias veces y no encuentro el micrófono. Y sí es molesto, se escucha todo.
Ok, mira, te voy a desactivar si me dice, pero no puedo volver a activar tu micrófono yo después. Si quieres hablar, creo que a ver si te deja activarlo nuevamente. Y si no, por el chat me mandas tu mensaje, ¿va? O alguna duda que tengas.
Ahora sí.
Por eso no lo había hecho, porque sabía que ya no lo puedo reactivar nuevamente.
Sí.
Sale, creo que ya quedó. Ok. Entonces decir, for example, I go on vacations by myself. It expresses that I do the activity alone. Okay, not exactly just like here. This is to do emphasis. Okay, I could also say I go on vacations myself, but that is just making emphasis that I do it by my own. Okay, it's normally it expresses that it's something difficult for a person to do it. Okay, but in this case, I am not expressing that it's difficult for me to go on vacations. I'm just expressing that I do it alone. Okay, or for example, she enjoys being by herself. Okay, in this case, she enjoys being by herself. It means that she enjoys being alone. Okay?
Okay.
And that's it. Those are the three forms that we can use reflexive pronouns. Okay? Girls, questions
Okay.
with them?
No, it's okay.
Perfect. I'm gonna open the chat just in case, or you can use your WhatsApp, Janine, okay, if you want to send a message. Okay, so we're done with the structure section and writing and the structure section, and now we're gonna start with about reading, okay? About the third section of the exam. Here we go. Yes, I wait. Do you want to go? You want me to go back? Where? Sure. This one. As you can notice, the plural nouns are always with selves. Okay, selves, 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 and all the singular nouns are with self. Okay, perfect. So let's continue with reading. Some passages might be classified in more than one way. For example, a biography might be about the life of a historical. Sorry, yes, I'm sorry, Janine, I'm going too fast. Um, Number one, yes, for emphasis. Number two, to express that you do the things by yourself or alone. Okay, and that's it. This is just the way we use them. Normally, as the object of the sentence. The only two uses emphasis and to express that something is done by yourself or alone. Okay,
Okay.
perfect. Okay, so I was saying that we can find a biography about a person, but it could be like the life of a historical figure, an artist, or a scientist. If there is a national context in any of these passages, they are always American, occasionally Canadian. Okay, let me use another color. They're Canadian or American normally. You will never find a rating about Mexican history. Okay, it's not really common actually. So they are normally about United States or Canada. Obviously, there are a lot of different topics, okay, but they are always written in a similar way. They are always written in a formal form, okay. And normally they always follow the same patterns. We're gonna check these patterns in a moment about how they are organized, okay. Now, the ratings in the TOEFL section, they always use sophisticated vocabulary. You're not going to find like very colloquial or very common vocabulary or language. That's why sometimes this is kind of the most difficult part in the TOEFL exam. Okay, so normally there will be words that you don't recognize because sometimes they even use like scientific vocabulary. Okay, you might guess the meaning of the words according to the context of the sentence. Okay, but normally, even though you can understand the meaning of a sentence of a word, it is important to understand all the text. Okay, not only one or two words, so you can have or you can be able to answer the questions. Now, what are the types of questions that you will find in the exam? There are four main types of questions. Number one, it's about the main idea or the main topic or the main purpose of the exam of the test. And there are like 10% of the questions are about these type of questions, okay? Number two, we have factual questions about facts, okay? Things that are mentioned in the exam or in the text, I'm sorry. Number three, we might also find negative questions, okay? Which are questions or things, or how can I, sentences, statements, that's the word. There are statements that are not discussed in the passage, okay? And finally, there are scanning questions, 4% of these questions, which you just have to identify a word in the passage or a paragraph, okay? So let's start with the first one. What is the main idea, main topic, or main purpose? To understand or to answer these questions, you need to understand the whole passage, okay? All of it. You need to understand all the lecture. If you only understand one or two paragraphs, it's going to be difficult for you to understand the main idea of the whole paragraph or the whole text, okay? The type of questions that you will find will be like, what is the main idea of the passage? What is the passage primarily about? Or why did the author write the passage? Number two, factual questions, as I said, they are questions about informations and details in the passage. Okay, so you will always find these answers written on the text. Okay, and the questions could be like, according to the passage, where did, I don't know, like, where did the author mention this? Okay, or according to the author, why did, I don't know, Americans did this? Okay, and finally, which of the following is true according to the passage? Okay, so you will read four different sentences and only one of them is true. Now, negative questions, as I said, they are not discussed in the passage. These answers are not mentioned on the text, okay? So the questions might be like, which of the following is not true about the reading? Okay, all of the following are true, except you must identify which one was not mentioned in the lecture. Okay, and finally, scanning questions. They in this case, scanning is like when you are reading a dictionary. You're not reading all the words. You're just looking for a word. Okay, so they are gonna ask you, like for example, in which line of the exam, the author of the exam of the lecture, the author mentioned this. Okay, or it says, where in the passage does the author first discuss something? And the answers could be like line 3, line 7, line 5, etc. Okay, so the answers are going to be with a number to identify in which part of the lecture something was mentioned. Okay, girls, questions here with the type of questions? Okay,
No.
good. Now, we also have these three types of questions, which are inference questions. Okay, we also have, and they are 12% of the questions are about inference questions. The 26%, as you can see, this is the highest percentage. They are vocabulary in context questions. Okay, and finally, we have reference questions. So, what are inference questions? These questions ask you to draw a conclusion based on the information of the passage. Okay, so these conclusions are going to be yours. They are not written in the lecture. Okay, they are going to tell you something, and you need to decide what could be the conclusion of that lecture. Okay, for example, the questions could be, the author implies that which of the following is true? They did not mention this in the lecture, but according to the way he is writing the lecture, you must identify what are they talking about, or what is the opinion of the author. Inference. Well, the good thing is that there are not too many questions about inference questions. There are only 12%. Okay, but yeah, you need to understand what's their position. Okay, remember, actually, there are also inference questions on the listening section. And if you remember, there were like, I remember an example that said, hey, why don't you buy your car? Why don't you sell your car? And the other person answers, oh, of course I'll sell it if someone gives me $1 million. So obviously, even when in the audio you listen that the person is asking $1 million for his car, you can infer, you can understand that the person does not pretend to sell his car because he's exaggerating, okay, the price of the car. So in the reading section, it's exactly the same. You need to read the lecture and try to understand what's the position of the author. Okay, why do they think about it? Another type of questions that we might find about inference questions could be like, which of the following can be inferred from the passage? Okay. Vocabulary and context questions are 26%, and they are always going to ask you about a word. Okay, a word. Normally they are like scientific words. It's kind of weird to know that a person knows the meaning of that word. But maybe you might also know the meaning of the word, but do not answer the question if you know the meaning of the word. Because sometimes, as you know in English, words might have several meanings, not only one. So you need to read maybe not only the sentence, but at least the paragraph, so you can be sure about what's the meaning of that word. So the example could be like the word, I don't know, the word work in line 5 is closest in meaning to, and you know that work can be translated as trabajar, but it can also be translated as funcionar. Okay, so you need to read the paragraph and understand if they are referring to trabajar or funcionar. Okay? And finally,
Okay.
reference questions. They ask you to identify the noun to which a pronoun or other expression refers. Okay? So they will always ask you about a noun. Okay? For example, the word eat in line 15 refers to what? Okay, so you need to understand which is the subject in that sentence, or what are we talking about with the noun or pronoun it. Okay, also you could find something like in line 20, the word there refers to which of the following. Okay, okay. So there are a few other types of questions that are occasionally, okay, this is part, it's occasionally, they are not very common, okay. Ask about the ratings. These make up the remaining of 5% of these questions, okay? So only 5% might be a different type of questions. About half the reading items have closed esteems. Okay, they begin with direct questions and the other half open esteems. They begin with incomplete sentences. What is a closed esteem? For example, the question could be, which of the following is the main topic of the passage? This is a closed esteem because we have a complete sentence. Okay, and an open esteem, it's like the main topic of the passage is, and you have to complete this sentence. Okay, so we will have like 50% and 50% of each questions. Okay, I'm sorry, before I continue, do you have any questions about the questions type?
No, I think no.
Very good, Tony. Good, Jenny. Okay, so now let's continue talking about the answer choices. For all questions in this part, as always, you will have 4 options, and all of them are equally grammatical correct, and in most cases, they will be equally logical. Okay? Choices for someone who has not carefully read the passage will might be distracted with this. Okay? Incorrect choices are generally based on information that is found in the passage. So pay attention to this. It's actually in blue. Incorrect choices are found in the passage. So it's exactly the same as with the listening section. If you listen the phrase word by word on the audio, you can obviously understand that if in the answer choices you have exactly the same phrase as an option, you can eliminate that option because that is the most probably not correct. Okay, it's the same here with reading. If you read word by word on the answer choices something that was written on the lecture, you can eliminate that answer because the most probably is that that is not correct. Okay.
Okay.
So, how not to read? The problem with this section normally is that we don't know how to read. And you know that you have time. We are not fast readers because we are not used to reading. Maybe you are used to reading, but you are not used to reading in English, and that's different. So, obviously, the first thing that you should do is to start practice reading. Okay, start practicing reading in English so you can read faster. Okay, but also there are some mistakes that people do when they are reading these lectures in the TOEFL exam. So, when you first take a quick look at the questions and not at the answer choices, normally the first mistake that you do or students do is that you read only the questions and you look for the answer on the lecture, but you are not reading the answer choices. Okay, that is a mistake. You also try to keep this in the back of your mind as you read the passage. Then read the article at a comfortable speed. Try not to read one word at a time like this. You should not read like this. A bird's territory might be small or large. Some birds claim only their nest and the area right around it. Okay, that is not correct. That is not a correct reading. Okay, you should read it as once. Okay, a bird's, well, actually, here we have the example. Okay, word by word reading slows you down and interferes with your comprehension. So that is not going to help you. Try to read in units of thought. In other words, group words into related phrases. Okay, not even a whole paragraph. You should, for example, read a bird's territory might be small or large. Some birds claim only their nest and the area right around it. Okay, so you can also separate sentences when you're reading. Like I said at the beginning, a bird's territory might be small or large. Okay, so I understand this specific part that they must be small or large. Okay, and I'm talking about bird's territory because I'm reading the in words. Okay, in group of words, not word by word. Okay.
Okay.
Now about the paragraphs. The paragraph is the primary unit of meaning in all reading. Okay, most passages consist of from 1 to 5 paragraphs. In the TOEFL exam, maybe you will find a reading only with 1 paragraph, or maybe you will find 5 paragraphs between 1 and 5. Okay, you will never find a reading of 6 paragraphs or more. Okay, if you can form a clear idea of what each paragraph is about. Okay, so you can put these ideas together and come up with the main idea of the entire passage. As I said, there are some questions that are going to ask you about the main idea of all the lecture. Okay, so try to understand what's the main idea of every paragraph as you're reading. Okay, so when they ask you about the main idea of the whole of the whole lecture, you can have a better idea about what is it about. Okay, now topics in the sentence. The main idea of each paragraph is often contained in one sentence. called the topic sentence. Try to locate topic sentences. Often, the topic sentence is the first sentence of a paragraph, but it might also be the last sentence. Occasionally, a paragraph has no topic sentence and the topic is stated indirectly. Okay? So we have three possible options. Okay? Number one, as you're reading the paragraph, the first sentence, normally, the first sentence is the topic sentence. Number two, it can also be the last sentence of the paragraph. And number three, maybe the paragraph does not mention anything, has no topic sentence. If so, you must infer the topic sentence, okay? As I said, maybe you will find a question like, what is the main idea of the lecture? And to answer that question, you need to understand all the lecture. But maybe you might find a question that says, what is the main idea of the second paragraph? Okay, in that case, you need to identify the topic sentence, which might be, I repeat, on the first sentence, on the last sentence, or you must infer it if it doesn't have it, okay? But those are the three options. Questions with what a topic sentence is? Good. Now, relationships between paragraphs. If there is more than one paragraph in the passage, try to understand the relationship between the paragraphs from a mental map of the passage. Watch for words that signal special relationships and transitions, such as however, therefore, first, next, then, and so on. Okay? Also, like years, you can read the numbers, years, or phrases like nowadays, 10 years ago, and then. Okay, this is important because as you can see, for example, the reading can start saying something like nowadays, people is in their houses because of COVID-19. And it keeps talking, okay? It keeps saying something. And then they said, but in the past, 10 years ago, people used to, I don't know, used to be outside playing in the bars, and they never imagined what would happen with COVID-19. Then in 2000, COVID-19 arrived to Mexico City and everyone started to die, etc. So, as you can see, maybe the order is not as we are used to read. Like the first paragraph talks about the first thing that happened and we follow that order. That's not how it works sometimes. Okay? Am I clear with the relationships? Perfect. Now, what about timing? Okay, now, do you know in the TOEFL exam you have 55 minutes for the readings, okay, to do the readings. These 55 minutes are divided in 5 lectures. Okay, you have 5 lectures. These 5 lectures might have, number 1, 10 questions, okay? 10 questions, and everyone might have 5 answers. It says 5 minutes, I'm sorry, per one. So, it says, for example, at the last 5 minutes, you should just skim quickly over the passages to get the main idea and answer the first questions, which is commonly about the main idea. Okay, so let's check how we should use our time during the reading. Sorry. Okay, so if let's say this, you have 5 readings, 5 readings, and you have 10 questions, normally 10 questions per reading. Okay, so if you have 10 questions in 5 readings, this make a summatory of 50 minutes. Okay, so we recommend you not to use 11 minutes per reading. That should not be correct. Always try to remember that you have only 10 minutes per reading. Okay, and those 5 extra minutes that you have, use them to skim quickly over the passages and answer the first questions. Okay, so that's the first thing that we should do. Then answer any questions that provide line numbers, vocabulary in context, and reference questions. Then answer any referring questions. And if you can't find the answer in 10 seconds, pick the most logical answer and go on. Finally, in the last seconds, fill all the answers left just guessing. Okay, so this is the order as you should follow or answer the exam on the last 5 minutes. No sé si me expliqué porque hasta yo medio me revolví al principio. Perdón, es que me entró una llamada y la estaba desviando y me distraje. Ok, I'm gonna say it this way. Chicas, tienen 55 minutos para las lecturas, ¿de acuerdo? Y son 5 lecturas. Cada lectura tiene 10 preguntas, por lo tanto tenemos 50 minutos y consideramos 10 minutos por lectura. Los últimos 5 minutos que les queden, aprovechenlos para hacer lo siguiente de esta manera. Es más, si ustedes alcanzaron a responder 4 lecturas y les queda nada más la última lectura, hay que responderlas en este orden. ¿Ok? Número 1. Skim over the passages to get the main idea. Es como, skim es una lectura rápida a todo el texto, traten de leerla rapidito, solamente para identificar cuál es la main idea. ¿Ok? Normalmente la primera pregunta de la lectura siempre va a ser acerca de cuál es la main idea de la lectura. Okay, what's the main idea? What's the main topic of, or what was the purpose of the author with the lecture? Okay. Entonces, primero se responde esa pregunta. Después de que contesten esa pregunta, hay que responder las preguntas que tengan números. Todas las que hagan referencia a tal frase o tal palabra en la línea 5, ¿a qué se refiere? O tal sustantivo en la línea 6, ¿a qué se refiere? Porque podemos identificar rápidamente la palabra, la línea y encontrar dónde debería estar la respuesta. ¿Ok? Esa es la segunda que tenemos que contestar. Después de responder estas preguntas, responderemos las preguntas de referencia, referring questions. ¿Ok? Igual, dijimos referring, nos indica explícitamente la frase tal, ¿a qué se refiere? ¿O qué quiere decir el autor con esta frase? ¿Ok? Después de responder esa, las siguientes preguntas que deberíamos de responder es, ya evitando leer, simplemente eligiendo la respuesta más lógica. ¿Ok? Tratando de hacerlo lo más rápido posible. Por último, en los últimos segundos que les queden, simplemente no dejen ninguna respuesta en blanco. Recuerden que todas las respuestas tienen puntos, entonces si le atinan a una, es posible que consigan un mejor resultado. ¿Ok? Entonces, este es el orden, repito, solo para los últimos 5 minutos que les queden de su examen. Hay que responderlas en este orden. Main idea questions, line number questions, referring questions, logical, and guessing. ¿Ok?
Ok.
Perfecto. Now, what happens if you finish early? If you finish on time and you still have 10 minutes extra, you should not deliver or send the exam. You should go back and check the ones that you doubt. Okay? Okay, concentration is very, very important while reading. Okay, sometimes when you are doing an activity, you are not paying attention, and it happens a lot when you're reading. Okay, so if you have any doubt, or if you know that you're not paying attention, try to focus again. Okay, try to improve your concentration while reading. From now until the day you present the TOEFL exam, keep practicing your English reading. Okay, read articles in English, read everything you can in English, and try to concentrate while you are doing. Okay, because that is like the biggest waste of time when you read, but you're not paying attention what you're reading, and you have to reread the lecture over and over again. Okay. Now, how can you prepare for this section? Number one, doing the cruise exercises. Okay, read as much as you can, as I said, and material from textbooks, magazines, newspapers, and encyclopedias will help you a lot. If you want to read novels because you prefer novels, let me tell you that they are not going to help you a lot with this section of TOEFL exam. They might help you to improve your concentration and to improve the speed as you read in English. Okay, but as we want to increase our vocabulary for this section too, I would recommend you to read this kind of material. Okay, encyclopedias, newspapers, magazines, and textbooks, because they use more complex vocabulary. Okay, or they use more technical vocabulary, and that's going to help you even more for this type of readings. Okay. Finally, after you finish a reading, write some questions about what you read yourself. Write the questions, write your own answers, and that is going to help you to improve, okay, this answer finding. Okay. What are the tips that I can give you for this TOEFL section? As with the other sections, number one, be familiar with the directions and the examples. Now you know that the examples, the third section has 55 minutes. Okay, you know how to divide the time during the exam. Okay, and you know what are the directions. As you practice the exercises on the course, on the platform, you will get familiar with the directions, and it's not going to be a waste of time when you do the exam. Okay, one more time. For each passage, begin by briefly looking over the questions, but not the answer choices. Okay, just read the questions, do not read the answer choices, and try to keep these questions in mind during your reading. As you're reading, try to remember the questions that you read. Read each passage at a comfortable speed. And finally, answer the questions referring to the passage when necessary. If you're reading, if you haven't finished the reading, don't worry. You can answer the referring questions. Okay, do not answer the topic idea or the main idea questions because you need to finish the reading. Okay, but referring questions can be answered as you're reading. You should also eliminate answers that are clearly wrong or do not answer the questions. If there is more than one option remaining, just guess if you don't know what the answer is. Mark difficult or time-consuming answers so that you can come back to them later if you have time. Okay? And finally, don't spend more than about 10 minutes on any reading and the questions about it, okay? Remember, you have only 10 minutes per reading. Try to keep that in mind. So at the end, you have enough time to do the 5 readings. Now, when only a few minutes remain, don't start guessing blindly. Remember, first skim and answer the first question, the main topic idea question. Then answer line number questions. Okay, then answer referring questions, which you can find quickly normally. And finally, choose the most logical. Okay. When there are only a few seconds left, remember always guess and answer all the questions. Do not leave any question in blank.
Okay.
So now let's start with every type of question, okay, and how we should answer these questions. Number one, let's talk about overview questions, which are the main idea, main topic, and main purpose questions first. As I said, normally these type of questions are going to be the first question. After every lecture, normally there is always an overview question. Okay, and the question is going to be about the main idea or main topic or main purpose of the passage. Okay, so what you have to do to answer these questions is to identify the most important thought in the passage. Normally, the answers are complete sentences. The questions could be like, what is the main idea of the passage? The primary idea of the passage is, or which of the following best summarizes the author's main idea? When there is not a single readily identified main idea, the main topic questions might be asked. These ask you what the passage is generally about, and the answer choices are noun phrases. Okay? For example, the main topic of the passage is, what does the passage mainly discuss, or the passage is primarily concerned with. Okay? What is this? Let's go back to, for example, this one. Okay, normally, as everything you read, you might see like the title in the reading. Okay, here I have more specific, I think. For example, it says USA presidents. USA presidents, okay? That's the title, and then you have the reading. Obviously, it says, if it says, what is the main idea of the passage? Well, USA presidents, okay? You could also find it on the title, but normally this is not as simple as it looks like. Also, I said there are other passages which have not a title, okay? And they will be these type of questions like the main topic of the passage is, okay, and you have to complete it. It's an open question or open statement, okay? And also we could find about the main purpose questions, which ask why the author wrote the passage. Okay, this is what we need to understand. Why the author wrote the passage. The answer choices for these questions will usually begin with infinitives. For example, the author's purpose in writing is to. What is the author's main purpose in the passage? What is the point of this passage? And why did the author write the passage? So for these type of questions, normally you will answer, or the answers will be infinitive verbs. Okay? So the answers could be like to define, to discuss, to illustrate, to distinguish between, or something and something, to relate, to propose, to support the idea that, or to compare something and something else. Okay? Now, overview questions don't answer the initial overview questions about a passage until you have answered the other questions. The process of answering the detailed questions may give you a clear idea of the main idea, topic, or purpose of the passage. So, as I said before, this is the first question. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me give you an example about how you should answer these questions. Okay, it's the first reading. Okay, it's the first lecture. The question number 1, normally it's about the main idea. Okay? And let's say that to do these answers, to do these questions, you have 50 minutes yet. Or 55 minutes. We have just started, okay? And this is example when you have just 5 minutes, when you're finishing. Okay. So, if you have time, you should answer these questions first. And then you should answer this question. Okay? But when you have just 5 minutes, when you're finishing, the first question should be the first. Okay? And then the rest of the questions. Am I clear?
Yes.
Perfect. So we do this because if you answer the second, third, fourth, and fifth question first, you might have a better idea about the main idea of the passage. Okay? But as here we don't have enough time, you should answer all of them. Okay? So we should start with this one. Now, about the main idea, the correct answer for the main idea, main topic, and main purpose questions correctly summarize the main points of the passage. Okay, so it's just a summary. They must be more general than any of the supporting ideas or details, but not so general that they include ideas outside the scope of the passage. Okay? Let's say not so general. Be more general than any of the supporting ideas. Okay. So the main idea could speak something or could say something about something that I was mentioning in the lecture. Okay, but they do not go further that. Okay, they will not tell you like the opinion that the writer might have if it was not mentioned. Okay, they will not go outer the reading. Okay. How are the distractors? You know that we always have a distractor on the four possible answers, okay? And for these type of questions, you might identify the distractors with this. Number one, they are too specific, okay? If they only say like USA presidents, that is too specific, okay? It's just telling you like that's it. Or too general, okay? About telling you like about all the lecture, but going to just the specific points, okay? Let me say another example. Could be like um, too specific. USA presidents that lived on the White House from 1962 to 2021. That is too specific, okay? Too general, USA presidents. They could also be just incorrect according to the passage. They could say something like Canadian presidents, and it's not, okay? Or finally, they are irrelevant or unrelated to the main idea of the passage. Maybe you will find something like, um, I don't know, politics and um, the votes, or politics and votes of people, and that's it. Maybe the reading did never mention anything about how people vote for their president. They will only focus, or they only focus on Abraham Lincoln. Okay, so they could be irrelevant, they could be incorrect, too general, or too specific. If you're not sure of the answer for one of these questions, then go back and quickly scan the passage. Okay? You can usually infer the main idea of all the passage from an understanding of the main ideas of the paragraphs that make up the passage and the relationship between them. Remember, I told you, if you have 5 paragraphs and you identify the main idea of every paragraph, it is going to be easier for you to understand all of it, okay? So here you have the main idea, and the main idea. So if you take all these main ideas, you will be able to create the main idea of all the paragraph, all the lecture, okay? Other overview questions that we might have could be, for example, about the overall understanding of the passage, okay? These are often the last questions in a set of questions. So as I was saying before, I said you have question number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So question number 1 is normally about the main idea. Okay, but now we're talking about the question number 5, the last type of question that you might find. Okay, we will check one by one right now. In this case, tone questions ask you to determine the author's feelings. Okay, about the topic by the language that he or she uses in the writing the passage. So in this case, you should look for vocabulary that indicates if the author's feelings are positive, negative, or neutral. Okay. So the main idea, maybe about, I'm using the same example about Abraham Lincoln's as president. Okay, maybe the reading is about Abraham Lincoln's life, but if you read that the author wrote something like Abraham Lincoln was the most honest person in the world because he did this, and this, and I always admire him. Now you understand the feelings of the author. You know that he's saying good things about him. Okay, so you should find or identify these words like admire, honest, etc. So as he's talking about something good, you will be able to answer these questions. Okay, they are not about the main idea. They are about the position of the author. Okay, what does the author thinks, or what's his opinion? For example, it could be like, what tone does the author take in writing this passage? And the tone could be like aggressive or passive or things like that, okay? Or the tone of this passage could best be described as, okay, this could be the last, this normally is the last question in every part, in every lecture. The sample answer choices that you might find are like this. positive, negative. As I said, I was talking about Abraham Lincoln, so my tone is positive. If I said something like, Abraham Lincoln was considered the most honest president in the United States, even though he stole money from everyone, he, I don't know, he had slaves, he, I don't know, I continue talking, okay? So even though I said that he was honest, etc., then I continue saying that he did a lot of terrible things. So in this case, this could be negative. But it could also be neutral if I say good and bad things about him. Okay? So I could say like he was the most honest person because he did this, and this, even though he also did this, and this. So it was just like an investigation about Abraham Lincoln. He tells you like everything he discovered, but that's it. He is not taking a part on the reading, okay? He's just letting you know what's the information. And so on. So it could be favorable, critical, objective, optimistic, unfavorable, impersonal, amused, angry, outraged. It's like very very angry. Okay, that's outraged. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, very much. Okay, angry very much. It goes like mad, upset, angry, furious, outraged. Okay. Then we have pleased, defiant, respectful, worried, humorous, and outraged. Girls, questions about the vocabulary or any other question here?
Um,
Yeah.
amazed,
Amused?
amused.
Yeah. Amused is like um how can I say it? Like excited.
Okay.
Okay. Now,
Okay.
feelings. Okay, we're identifying the feelings of the author. So if you read the following sentences in passages, would the tone of those passages most likely be positive or negative? Let's check. For example, letter A. That was just the beginning of a remarkable series of. I'm sorry. No. Give me just a second. Let me just erase this so we can do the activity. Here we go. Okay. So tell me, it's an activity. Okay, you are going to tell me if the first sentence was or is expressing a positive feeling or a negative feeling. Okay. It says option A. That was just the beginning of a remarkable series of performances by this brilliant actress. Tell me, is this a positive or negative? Positive or negative tone? What do you think? That's right. It's positive. Okay, we have the phrases here remarkable and brilliant. Okay. Option B. Despite some minor problems, this device has a number of admirable features. Positive? What do you think, Tanya?
Positive.
Positive? Good. Okay, as you can see here, it's correct. Okay, it's positive, but I want to clarify something. For example, on the option letter A, we have these two words in blue, and both words refers to something positive, remarkable, and brilliant, right? In option B, we have minor problems, which refers to something negative, and admirable refers to something positive. So we have two sentences in the same paragraph, one expressing something negative and one expressing something positive. So how do you know that the whole phrase refers to something positive? The key word here is despite. Do you remember what despite means? Good. You know, despite is like a pesar de. So we're saying that even though they had minor problems, they have admirable features. So even negative things, it is also something positive. What about letter C? This practice is a waste of time and money. That's good, Janine. Si quieres encenderlo sin problema, ¿eh? Good, sure. Yeah, that's right, Tanya. Thank you. It's negative. Okay, we're talking about waste, even though they have no meaning. Time and money or waste, they could be positive or negative. Okay, but together, we're talking about the waste of time that is negative. Okay, and letter D. At the time his poems were first published, they were very popular. But today, most critics find them simplistic and rather uninteresting.
Negative.
That's right. It's negative. They might say something positive at the beginning, like very popular, but then it says that they are uninteresting and simplistic, okay? So that's why I was telling you that you should not answer a question just by reading the first sentence, like here, because when you continue reading, you will realize that actually it has a negative meaning, okay? Questions here?
Okay.
Good.
No.
Just remember when you answer these type of questions that words like despite, but, although, however, and similar words can reverse the tone of the passage. Okay? Despite, but, although, however.
Okay. Okay.
Note, most TOEFL reading passages have a neutral tone, but sometimes an author might take a position for or against some point. However, answer choices that indicate strong emotions, like we said, angry, outraged, sad, etc., they will seldom be correct. And be careful here, seldom. Okay? Normally they are not correct. Normally they are not correct. Answer choices that indicate a strong emotion. As I said, if you're a writer, you don't want to express all your theory or all everything you're feeling. Okay, maybe you are okay with that and you express it. Okay, but you don't do like a lot of emphasis expressing that you hate something or that you are against something. Okay, so strong emotions are not normally correct. Okay,
Okay.
Now, we also have attitude questions. Attitude questions, they are similar to tone questions. Okay, we have attitude and tone questions. Again, you must understand the author's opinion. The language that the author uses will tell you what is his or her position. And what is also, for example, what is the author's attitude toward smoking on airplanes as expressed in the sentence below? It says, for example, although some passengers might experience a slight discomfort from not smoking on long flights, their smoking endangers the health of all the passengers and crew. What do you think is the attitude of the writer in this paragraph about smoking on an airplane? Do you think he agrees or he disagrees?
He disagrees.
That's right. He disagrees. Okay. So what are the type of questions that we might find? We have, for example, what is the author's attitude toward something? The author's opinion of something is best described as, or the author's attitude toward could best be described as one of the following, or how would the authors probably feel about? Okay, this could be the type of question that you might find. Another type of attitude questions present four statements and ask how the author will feel about them. For example, which of the following recommendations would the author most likely support? If I said, let's say that I am the writer and I wrote that I hate when people smokes on airplanes. Okay, you already read that. Now, the question is, which of the following recommendations would the author most likely support? And you will find one that says, I don't know, charts, I don't know, yeah, sent to jail to people who smokes on airplanes. Um, Stop selling alcohol on airplanes. Do not sell cigarettes on airports. And finally, I don't know, have an special place for smokers on airplanes. So, which of the following recommendations would the author most likely support? Well, according to their lecture, you understand that the attitude of the writer, which is that he hate people when they smoke on airplanes. So maybe he would like to send to prison to people who is smoking on an airplane. Okay? Obviously, the alcohol was never mentioned, so it's not an answer. Okay, to have an open place, it's not possible, or to have a specific place for smokers, it's the same. They are on an airplane, and actually, the reading said that they were in the same place with people who is not smoking, who are not smokers. So obviously, it's not the option either. Okay. Also, you could find questions like the author would be least likely to agree with which of the following statements, or the author of the passage would most likely be in favor of which of the following policies. Okay, so these questions are never mentioned on the reading, but you need to identify the attitude of the writer to answer the questions, okay? Or the position of the writer. Now, how are these questions organized? As we said, the questions about overall structure of the passage or about the organization of a particular paragraph. Okay, number one, the questions could be like, which of the following best describes the organization of the passage? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I said, they're going to ask you about how the paragraph is organized. Okay? For example, you have the reading, and it says this is the paragraph number 1, paragraph number 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay? They're going to give you a sentence, and they're going to ask you in which paragraph that was mentioned. Okay? So in this case, the answer choices could be like, a general concept is defined and examples are given in paragraph number 5. Okay? This is the type of questions or answers, I'm sorry. Several generalizations are presented from which a conclusion is drawn. The author presents the advantages and disadvantages of the author presents a system of classification for persuasive language is used to argue against, or the author describes, the author presents a brief account of something, or the author compares something and something. Okay?
Okay.
We might also have missed paragraphs. Okay? For example, as I said, you will always find from 1 to 5 paragraphs in the TOEFL exam. But maybe you don't have the conclusion, or maybe you don't have the beginning of that lecture. Okay, obviously, you will not have the whole reading. What we're talking here about missed paragraphs is that maybe they will ask you about what could be the next thing the author is going to tell you about something. Okay, imagine a movie. You're watching a movie, okay, and I paused the movie at the half of the movie, and I ask you, what do you think that is going to happen then? You need to imagine, you need to think, okay, until now, this, and this has happened. So what happens? What is next? It's the same here. You will have the lecture, but it's not complete. And the questions are about what could hypothetically be the next paragraph. Okay? Here we have. What would be the topic of the hypothetical paragraph? Okay, that precedes or follows the passage. Maybe they will not ask you about what is next. They will ask you about what happened before that, okay? Questions here about missed paragraphs?
No.
Good. Now, to find to know what could be next or what could be before, you should also always look for clues on the first line. Look for clues on the first line or two of the passage, okay, for the topic of the following passage. Look in the last few lines.
I know. One more time, please.
Yes?
I have to look, but we have to look for clues for on the first line.
Yes? Okay, there are two possible options. Number one, okay, you have a paragraph with 5 sentences, okay? Or 5 lines.
Mhm.
So, if my question is, what could be the previous paragraph? If the question is about the previous paragraph, you should check the first 2 lines of the paragraph, okay? But if the question is what could be the last or the next paragraph about, you should check the last 2 sentences or the last 2 lines, okay?
Yeah, okay.
So you have two possible questions. One could be what could be the previous paragraph of this reading, or what could be the following paragraph on this reading. So to have an idea, you should try to read or to look for clues on the first two lines or the last two lines according to the question. Okay?
Okay.
Sample questions. So the questions could be like, with what topic would the following or preceding paragraph most likely deal? Or the paragraph prior to or after the passage most probably discusses. It can be inferred from the passage that the previous or next paragraph concerns. And finally, what most likely precedes or follows the passage. Okay? Girls, do you have any questions here?
Yes.
Tell me.
It was not that clear for me the last part of the
This?
sample questions.
The sample questions.
Uh-huh.
Okay, sample questions are just, as they say, the example of questions that you might find on the exam. After the reading, you will find the questions, and the questions could be like this. Okay, like with what topic would the following or preceding paragraph most likely deal? Let me just copy and paste this one so we can have two different questions. Okay.
I get it then.
Yeah, you did it? Yeah, they are just examples
Yes,
for
they
the
are
questions.
just examples.
Yes, they are just examples. Okay, remember that I gave you here on the chart, where is it? Here. Okay, I told you, okay, we have main idea, main topic, and main purpose of the question. I told you what the questions were, and I gave you some examples. Okay, what is the main idea of the passage? What is the passage primarily about, etc. Now I'm telling you that you could also find questions like this. No, not like that one. Like, no, I can find, here they are. Okay, like these questions. They could also appear on the TOEFL exam. Girls, questions here?
No, it sounds very confusing, but the time you are reading, then I get some trouble with it.
Okay. That's why I give you this type of question, so you can understand the question, because sometimes when you're reading the exam or when you're taking the exam, with the pressure, stress, and everything you're feeling, and it's the last part of the exam, you're tired too. Sometimes maybe you don't understand the question, and that makes you make mistakes. Okay, so if you know the questions, if you understand the questions now, it's going to be easier for you to answer the questions then. Okay?
Yeah.
So until here. Conclusion. Okay, so we said that we have different types of questions, and today we only check the main idea, main topic, or main purpose of questions. Okay? Which I told you that there are three possible answers here. Main idea, topic, or purpose, okay? Number one, well, it's idea. Number two could be the tone. And number three could be the attitude. Sorry, and the precede, prior, or next. Okay?
Okay.
Cuatro tipos de preguntas hasta aquí. para poder responder estos cuatro tipos de preguntas, tenemos la misma situación. Tenemos que entender toda la lectura para poder responder cuál es la idea principal de la lectura, para entender cuál es el propósito de la lectura. ¿Ok? Segunda, entender el tono, si está hablando de una manera positiva, negativa ante cierto tema. ¿Ok? La actitud del escritor, si el escritor opina que está de acuerdo o no, qué podría hacer el escritor más adelante, si el escritor estaría de acuerdo con X o Y ley o situación, etc. Y por último, para imaginarnos cuál podría ser el párrafo anterior o el párrafo siguiente de la lectura. Para poder responder todas estas preguntas tenemos que entender toda la lectura. ¿De acuerdo?
Sí. Ok.
Bien. Hasta aquí terminamos con el primer tipo de preguntas. Y vamos a dejarle este aquí. Ya nos falta poco. Ok. La próxima clase checaremos factual questions, negative questions, and scanning questions. Ok. Well, and the rest. We'll check
Yes. La clase que viene ya es la última clase.
Correcto. Sí, ya el jueves tenemos la última clase.
No.
Le decía a Tania hace ratito, Janine, igual esto va para todos, también ahorita lo publico en el grupo. Como recomendación, si pueden responder el examen al final del curso, vienen otros exámenes. Si pueden responder el que dice TOEFL 2, si no me equivoco, es otro examen TOEFL completo. Si lo pueden responder de aquí al jueves, sería bueno para darnos una idea. Y el mismo jueves podemos revisarlo o podemos ver, o me puedo yo fijar en, mira, te falló más esto, esto y esto. Te recomiendo que estudies más este tema o que prepares esto, ¿no? Sí pueden, porque todavía nos falta parte de la lectura como para poder todavía tener un mejor resultado. Y si no, no hay ningún problema. Terminamos la clase el jueves. Ustedes, en cuanto preferentemente cuando hayan terminado todos los demás ejercicios, responden su examen. E igual, yo les puedo mandar ya un mensajito de manera privada por WhatsApp referente a sus resultados y que podrían practicar todavía un poco más.
Ok.
¿Sale?
Oye, Luis, ¿y no se podría que, bueno, no sé, que esta clase que tenemos pendiente la dejamos así que la clase científica es la que falta, se quedará pendiente para la otra semana y así ya nos das tiempo como de contestar más del examen y los exámenes?
Por mí no hay ningún problema.
O sea, más ejercicios y los exámenes. Y ya si tenemos duda, pues ya te lo decimos en la siguiente hora.
Me parece bien. Tania,
de la siguiente semana.
¿Estás de acuerdo, Tania?
Sí, muy bien.
Sí, me parece bien.
Sí, me parece.
Ok, no creo que haya tanto problema, Janine.
Entonces no sé qué día.
Sí, pues igual si quieren el mismo martes o prefieren que sea el próximo jueves.
Yo preferiría el jueves.
Ok.
Para así que
tener todavía más tiempo. Claro. Sí, ahorita lo publico en el grupo. No creo que haya tanto problema. En realidad son ustedes todas las que más se conectan. Los demás están tomando también bueno, me han mandado preguntas, me consta que están tomando las grabaciones. Pero igual, les pregunto, nada más para que estén enterados, si se pensaban conectar este jueves y mejor también tengan ellos oportunidad de ponerse al corriente y el jueves nos reunimos todos la próxima semana. ¿Sale?
Ok. De todos modos, ¿tú puedes ver nuestro progreso en el sistema?
Sí, yo puedo ver el progreso y puedo ir viendo sus resultados también de cada ejercicio. Igual, también yo tengo chance para ir revisando a lo mejor a ver qué tal va cada una.
Perfecto.
¿Sale?
Entonces nos vemos el próximo jueves.
¿Sale?
A los.
Correcto. Hasta el próximo jueves, chicas. Descansen.
Muchas gracias. Muy bien. Gracias, Luis.
Por nada.
Bye.
Bye.